Let's move on with a look through the day's front pages of the French newspapers with Oliver Farry. Hi there, Oliver.
Good morning.
You've been taking a look through for us. Greece, that big story of the week. It's going to be a big story for a long time, isn't it? It's on the front pages once again today here in France.
That's right. A deal is still a little bit off, but there's optimism on all sides that it will be reached in the coming days. Concessions made by Athens have opened the way. Its commitment to making cost-cutting measures are being examined. Le Figaro's front page says there's a race against time to save Greece. It can be done. It says never in 5 months has an agreement been so close between Athens and its creditors, but it's still somewhat cautious about the proposals from Athens. The right-leaning paper does not really have an awful lot of time for Alexis Tsipras's left-wing government. Libération on its front page says no to the Grexit. It says that not only Greece's future is at stake, but also the Eurozone. It says Greece leaving the current currency could be catastrophic.
Well, I guess depending on how involved our viewers are personally in all of this, you can see it as rather exciting or rather scary. That's coming out in the newspapers as well, isn't it? That's
right. There's a real sense of urgency about things, and many of the French papers are using sporting imagery to describe it. The pro-business daily L'Opinion says that the final sprint turns into a middle-distance race. Now, this is alluding to the fact that it's going on, the extension of the talks for another couple of days. The latest proposals arrived too late to be studied in depth by Greece's creditors. Awaiting a final deal, L'Opinion says the European Central Bank will be assuming stewardship to ensure things won't break down. It's already believed to have put its figurative hand in its pocket yesterday for an undisclosed amount. And the figures that have already gone into rescuing Greece, or other people would say, in just paying off its creditors, have been dizzying. The Paris daily Le Parisien reports that since 2010, 226.5 billion euros have been lent by the Eurozone to Greece. Not that the Greek people have seen much of that, because 85% of it has gone to servicing its debt. Now, elsewhere, Le Parisien gives us another figure, 19.3 billion euros, which is the amount of money in tax fraud that was settled between offenders and the French Treasury in 2014.
The French
That's right,
Treasury.
Yes. And the state has also recovered about half of that. Now, there was also benefit fraud, but it's considerably lower, 852.6 million, which is about 1/20th of the known tax fraud figure.
Still quite a lot, isn't it? It'd probably pay for quite a few public services, community centres, that kind of thing.
Yes.
It's the kind of thing that really gets people, I think, wherever you live, quite hot under the collar, doesn't it? The idea that you're paying your tax and someone else
Absolutely.
isn't. The government trying to crack down.
That's right.
What about the progress in the justice system area of this? Because that's where it really comes to a crunch.
There have been people that saying that not enough progress has been made in juvenile justice, and one of those people is actually the Minister for Justice herself, Christiane Taubira. The left-wing daily Humanité says that very little progress has been made. The Justice Minister wants the whole system to be overhauled, brought into line with the original ordinance of 1945, which is more or less the founding text of the juvenile court system. It's emphasised education and rehabilitation before punishment, but Taubira is getting impatient at the dragging of the heels of the government. She's threatened to step down if proper reform doesn't happen. Now, the government isn't in such a rush, and Taubira has many enemies on the right who were already annoyed by the minister's drive for legalising marriage equality, are gloating. Le Figaro says the minister never resigns, but she regularly threatens to. She's shameless, a minister who takes it upon herself to play the diva.
OK, well, moving on from all those political arguments, a bit of a crazy story, this one. It's about a genetically modified lamb, or several of them, lambs here in France.
Le Parisien carries on its front page the mad case of the GM sheep. France is a country that's particularly alarmed about the rise of genetically modified ordinances. Now, this case is one of a lamb that was genetically modified with jellyfish protein.
Jellyfish?
Jellyfish,
as in the thing that swims in the sea? That's
right, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a good source of protein, I can tell you.
Okay,
but
good to know.
it was done by France's National Institute for Agronomic Research. Now, it was all done in the interest of science, but the paper says that the actual Frankenstein sheep ended up in the food chain. Now, nobody's sure by whom or where it was consumed. the actual experiment was carried out in the Paris region. So, you know, personally, you and I are not safe from it. Le Parisien quotes a judicial source. It says, this shows, if it turns out to be true, that even the most carefully monitored research institute is not immune to personal error.
Indeed. I'd like to know more about this lamb. Did it grow tentacles? Did it swim? We'll have to find out.
Portuguese sheep of war.
Oh, indeed. Very alarming stuff indeed. Well, finally, one story that's got a lot of people here in France talking. A very famous Frenchman who's reappeared on Twitter after quite a long silence.
That's right, and people are scratching their heads wondering what it's all about. Dominique Strauss-Kahn, the former IMF chief, who, of course, had his brushes with the law in New York in 2011 and more recently in France, was cleared of both wrongdoing in both cases. Libération devotes an editorial to his arrival on Twitter yesterday. Its headline is How DSK Killed Twitter. Now, he's only following 5 other people, other accounts to date. They include 2 Nobel Prize-winning economists, Paul Krugman and Joe Stiglitz. His first tweet was enigmatic, a picture with the message, "Hello Twitter, Jack is back." Nobody's sure what to make of it. I think it might be a reference to the film LA Confidential, to Jack Bauer of the TV show 24, but Libe's editorial reckons it's all empty PR. This event shows that above all what Twitter is turning into, a network for self-expression and flaunting yourself, and no longer one for sharing and seeking out a community of interest. So therefore, he has killed Twitter. Well, DSK has certainly got everyone stumped with his own little riddle and got everyone talking.
Indeed. I'm sure we'll have to talk about our theories off air sometime. Thanks very much for now. Oliver Farry, who'll be back later on looking through the international papers for us as well. Right now,